Part 56. Fantasy, Me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 552. Thank you, Senior TNG Poster, for your advice. The fifth elder said excitedly. At this moment, he was full of energy, swept away the aura of old age, and seemed to have returned to a young boy again, full of energy. That was the opportunity to become the immortal king. It can be said that the master of TNG turned his life around with just one word. Trajectory. Without the guidance of Master TNG, even if he is approaching the realm of immortal king, it is still unknown whether he can become an immortal king in the future. There is no need to thank me in a hurry. If you want to become an immortal king, you have to pay a price. Li Yun said lightly. Yep. The fifth elder nodded hurriedly and said, that's what the senior poster said. After finishing speaking, he turned his hopeful eyes to the head of his family. In name, he is the fifth elder of the Xiao family. He has a noble status and holds great power, but he is not the only one who is involved in matters involving the immortal king level. It has the final say. First of all, it requires the clan leader's nod. Senior, these are the two methods of suppressing the clan of our Xiao clan. Do you think they can be counted as two immortal king level items? Xiao Wushang pondered for a moment. He took out two jade slips and placed them in front of Li Yun. In the history of the Xiao family, a total of two immortal kings were born, and these two immortal kings both created their own magic. Left to future generations. It is a bit unrealistic to exchange weapons now. After thinking about it, only the cultivation method is more reliable. This is also what most people think. After all, hand over a share and I still have a copy in my hand. On the other hand, if you give away a copy of weapons, elixirs, etc., you will lose 1 point. And when you reach the level of the immortal king, they are all available but not sought. Whether you can still have them in the future is up to you. Is an unknown quantity. Can. Li Yun nodded. After hearing the answer, Xiao Wushang breathed a sigh of relief. As long as there are no mistakes in the immortal king level items, the immortality level items will be easy to deal with. This time. Come to TNG Tower, there are many of them. My hands were prepared, and I brought a lot of good things with me. I originally planned to ask the owner of TNG Tower to personally deal with the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain. But now, I can exchange for my own immortal king, which is also an unexpected joy. Immediately, Xiao Wushang took out a ring again, sent it to Li Yun, and said respectfully, these are 6 items of immortality realm. I would like to ask seniors to take a look at them. Li Yun casually took the storage ring, glanced at it with his spiritual consciousness, and after confirming that it was correct, he threw out a jade slip and fell into the hands of the fifth elder. This is your opportunity. Once you get it, I will ensure that you successfully take the last step and become an immortal king. Thank you, Senior. The fifth elder took the jade slip, with trembling palms and hot eyes. He took a look at the contents and quickly recorded it in his heart. This opportunity. It is not too far from the Xiao family, it is in the Sumeru world, but it is relatively hidden. Was preserved from ancient times, when the Tianyan world was not broken. Now times have changed, and without the guidance of the master of TNG, perhaps the opportunity will never come to the world. If you have nothing else to do, just leave. Li Yun waved his hand and said lightly. Yes. Junior, wait, please excuse yourself. Xiao Wushang and others all bowed their hands and quickly left the TNG tower. Arriving outside the TNG tower, the fourth elder took the lead and couldn't help but ask fifth elder, what was recorded in the jade slip given to you by the senior master of TNG tower just now? Hearing this sentence, everyone in the Xiao family couldn't help but look over. Although they could not become immortal kings, they were still very curious about the advice from the master of TNG. Who doesn't want to know what good thing TNG poster pointed out? I was in TNG Tower just now. I just didn't have the nerve to ask because of my face. Nothing. The fifth elder shook his head. It's just an address. Address? The fourth elder was startled and said softly, could it be an ancient cave, or a place where some kind of fairy fruit grows? The place of transformation of an immortal king. The fifth elder pondered for a moment and said slowly, transformation. Hearing this, everyone around them showed a look of astonishment. The immortal king is immortal and transcends the constraints of time and space. Logically speaking, few immortal kings will choose to transform into Taoism, because once they transform into Taoism, this immortal king will be immortal. The king is not just as simple as losing his soul, but also leaving all his Tao fruits somewhere. It can be said that this is a practice only to benefit future generations. But for himself, there is no any benefit. Except for those who encounter incurable injuries, almost no immortal king will choose this path. Most people choose reincarnation. Or keep wandering in the heavens and worlds, seeking themselves the way forward. Since it is a place of transformation, only the fifth elder should be the best candidate. The great elder's voice sounded slightly vicissitudes of life. He glanced at the fourth elder without trace and reminded, I am afraid that except for the opportunity given by the master of TNG, even if others get it, they may not be able to take the last step. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 553. The fourth elder heard this. His expression changed. He heard that the great elder was warning him. Because everyone in the Xiao clan understands that he is most eager for the immortal king. If he intervenes and strengthens the chances of the fifth elder, the result is very likely that neither of them will be able to take the final step. At that time, the loss to the Xiao family is huge. What the great elder said is absolutely true. The fourth elder said nervously. The fourth elders don't have to worry. When the fifth elder becomes the immortal king, the Xiao family will definitely return to its past. It won't be a problem to gather some resources by then to help you get closer. The third elder next to him made peace. If it were placed at other times, they would definitely not be able to say this. But now, TNG Tower is behind you. As long as you have enough resources, you can get countless opportunities and become the immortal king no longer seems to be out of reach. As far as they know, in just a few years, many great emperors have emerged in the Tianyuan world relying on the TNG Tower. From this point on you can see how important a TNG Tower is to a world. In a short period of time, it is as simple as eating and drinking to increase the combat power of a world. Dear elders, we have been away from Sumeru realm for a long time, and it is time to go back now. Otherwise, the man from Tianmang Mountain will. Xiao Wushang glanced into the distance, his eyes were very solemn. He was worried that while he and others were away, the demon saint from Tianmang Mountain would create some trouble in the dark. That's fine. The six elders nodded. The moment they raised their feet to leave, two figures in white passed by them and went straight into the TNG building. The great elder of the Xiao clan raised his eyebrows, glanced at the two people's backs, and murmured, the peak of the immortality realm. Is this a character from that world? Could it be from the real martial arts world or from other worlds? He can be sure. These two people are not from the Sumeru realm, nor are they from the Xianguang realm. After all, the Xianguang realm is controlled by the underworld. With the destruction of the underworld, the top combat power of the Xianguang realm has been reduced. Now the appearance of a strange person at the peak of the immortality realm had to make him feel doubtful. Because after such a powerful person enters the TNG Tower, it may not be long before there will be an additional immortal king in the world. Come out. Think for a moment. Without any clue, the great elder of the Xiao family turned around and left. At the same time, inside the TNG building, two clear voices sounded. Junior, Taichu, pays homage to the senior poster. May the juniors live forever, and pay homage to the senior poster. Came back. Li Yunduan sat on the chair, looked at the two people in front of him, and said with a smile. Thanks to the help of our seniors, we can successfully destroy the underworld. Taishu said with emotion. Obviously, he attributed Meng Qingzi's actions to Li Yun. After all, without Li Yun nodding, how could Meng Qingzi, an emperor-level figure, have the courage to provoke the underworld? This is all your own creation. Li Yun picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea, and said lightly, after you destroyed the underworld, you rushed back to the Tianji Tower. It seems that you have gained a lot in the underworld. This. Taishu and True Lord Changsheng looked at each other and said a little embarrassedly, it's quite rewarding, but there is another Taoist friend who also gained a lot. But he didn't go with the two of us, so he came back a little slower. Li Yun nodded. This is in line with Meng Qingzi's character. He has taken so many good things, but his own strength is not strong. Without the formation, he has no chance of winning whether he is facing Taishu or the Immortal Lord. He should judge himself and others. Meng Qingzi felt that there was a high chance that these two people would do something secretly. Therefore, he would rather fly back slowly than let Taishu bring him back with him. According to the strength of his great emperor, he wanted to fly back from the Xianguang realm to the Tianyuan realm. It is estimated that it will take about 10 or 8 years at least. Maybe when he returns to Tianji Tower, he has cultivated to the middle or late stage of the great emperor. After all, the resources in his hands are still very rich. What news do you want to find out when you come back this time? One step closer to strength? Or the whereabouts of the Lord of the Underworld? Li Yun asked casually. Don't hide it from seniors. Taishu took a step forward, cupped his hands and said, although the underworld has been destroyed, I am not strong enough, so I still let the owner of the underworld run away. This person is powerful and very close to the immortal king. If he breaks through, he may cause a huge disaster. I would also like to ask my seniors to give me some pointers as to where this person is currently. Ah! Hearing this, Li Yun smiled and shook his head. Senior, what does this mean? Taishu's heart skipped a beat. After they returned from the Xianguang realm, they had been on the road all the time, so they didn't know the news that the Lord of the Underworld had died. Of course. It also has something to do with the fact that the news didn't spread. After all, they were involved in this matter. There are only a few people like Lu Qingyu and the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain. They are too lazy to publicize it all over the world, so the death of the Lord of the Underworld is still a secret until now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 554. The Lord of the Underworld is dead. Li Yunfan said calmly. As soon as these words appeared, they were like a huge stone, crashing down, setting off huge waves in the hearts of Taishu and Changsheng Zhenjun. Died. How can it be? Taishu and the Immortal Lord looked at each other. They had experienced that battle personally, and the strength of the Lord of the Underworld left a deep impression on them. Taishu was even sure. In the immortal realm, absolutely no one would be the opponent of the Lord of the Underworld, even the seriously injured Lord of the Underworld, would never be retained by ordinary people. Moreover, with the background of the Lord of the Underworld, it won't take long for him to recover. By then, he will directly become an immortal king. It is very possible. But such a terrifying figure was actually told by the owner of Tianji that he was dead. It is a bit incredible no matter how you look at it. Did the senior poster personally take action? The immortal lord asked softly. In his opinion, in today's world, only senior Tianji Luzo can achieve this step. No Li. Yun shook his head and said calmly, this news is a gift from me. It won't be long before the whole world knows it. The demon saint of Tianmang Mountain will not be content with silence. When he takes action, the news of the death of the Lord of the Underworld will inevitably spread. Moreover, these two people are also regular customers after all. There is no need to trick them. After all, when they come to Tianji Tower now, I will not let them leave empty-handed. Since a senior has spoken, the Lord of the Underworld must have really fallen. Taishu let out a sigh of relief. The big stone in his heart finally fell. Without the threat of the Lord of the Underworld, he could also cultivate quietly for a while. The destruction of the Underworld is a good thing for all worlds, but the Hades Emperor of the earthly immortal world is still alive, and maybe it will become another hidden danger in time. The immortal lord frowned and said. He was from the earthly immortal realm and knew very well about the strength of the Hades Emperor. Especially, the Lord of the Underworld once sent people to search for the Hades Emperor, but the result was nothing. Although he didn't know what happened in the middle, but if I guess with my toes, I can also understand that the Underworld was in trouble with Emperor Hades. Emperor Hades, who was only a true immortal, could make the huge Underworld suffer. From this, it can be seen that Emperor Hades' background. Once she rises, she will be more terrifying than the underworld of the Xianguang realm. After all, there are no 6 reincarnations in the underworld of the Xianguang realm, but the Emperor of Hades has 6 reincarnations in his hands. This is a big killer weapon in the ancient underworld. Once sacrificed, even the immortal Emperor will suffer. Senior, where is Emperor Hades now? The immortal lord asked. She is in a small world. If you want a specific location, it will cost a lot of money. Li. Yun glanced at the immortal lord and said casually, although you can afford this news, if you pass, I'm afraid your life will not be saved. If you buy additional life-saving methods, the value of your body will still be much lower. At the beginning, the underworld sent so many strong men, but in the end they were all lost in the small world of Hades Emperor. Among them were many people at the peak of the immortality realm. And if the immortal lord, who was at the peak of the true immortal realm, rushed over, he might be immediately killed by Hades Emperor. Give it a second. Even if Taisha goes with him, there is probably little hope for both of them. For a person who always takes care of Tianji Tower's business, he doesn't want to watch Taishu and the true Lord Changsheng die. He is still waiting to cut their wool repeatedly on them. Woolen cloth. This. The immortal lord is at a loss for words. He didn't expect that in a short period of time, Emperor Hades, who was not his opponent before, would now be so terrifying. Could it be that? Has Emperor Hades' strength grown so fast? You think too much. Li Yun saw what the immortal lord was thinking, and said slowly, it's not that her strength has grown horribly, but that after arriving in the true immortal realm, the inheritance from the underworld that she can use has become even more horrifying. Originally, with the strength of the underworld emperor, he held the inheritance of the underworld in his hand, but some magical powers or secret techniques could not be activated at all. Now that his strength has improved, there are naturally more means. It can be said that the heirs of the underworld, every time they improve level and strength, have undergone earth-shaking changes. Because their road was already paved when the ancient underworld was destroyed. As long as they go on step by step, sooner or later they can rule the world. If she reaches the level of immortality, she may be the next lord of the underworld. Li Yun added at the end. The expressions of the two Taisha people changed, and they were about to speak, but were interrupted by Li Yun casually. Of course, the premise is that you can see the scene that day. Taishu's eyes narrowed, and he noticed something was wrong, and asked softly, Senior, what does this mean? Don't you think that Emperor Hades is the only threat in all the worlds? Li Yun said with a smile, but not a smile. Are there others who have also mastered the inheritance of the underworld? Taish's expression changed. Having the Lord of the Underworld and the Emperor of the Underworld is enough to make them miserable. What will they do if there is another inheritor who controls the underworld? Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 555. Isn't it obvious enough? Li Yun said with a smile. As soon as these words came out, Taishu and Immortal Lord were stunned by the question. But then, the two of them reacted. Yes. As far as we know so far, there is already the Hades Emperor and the Underworld Emperor. Between the two of you, who knows if there will be people in other worlds who have also obtained the inheritance of the Underworld? Does the senior mean that not long after, there will be the same person holding the inheritance of the Underworld in his hand, who is more threatening than the Emperor of Hades and the Lord of the Underworld? The Immortal Lord asked tentatively. He and others had just solved the Underworld in the Xianguang realm. If another powerful enemy really appeared, it would be even more powerful than the Lord of the Underworld. They couldn't think of any way to fight against it. Because being more tyrannical than the Lord of the Underworld means that the other party's strength must have surpassed the realm of immortality and reached the realm of the Immortal King. And the Immortal King is not something they can deal with just one plan. When people look at it, he and Taishu were probably going to die on the spot. Ah! Li Yun did not answer this time. Instead, he chuckled, picked up the white jade teapot next to him, and poured himself a cup of tea. This performance made the Immortal Lord next to him feel a sinking feeling. If nothing else happened, he would the guess I just made is probably going to come true. In that case, who is this person who holds the inheritance of the underworld? Is it possible that he is a person from other worlds who crosses over? After all, the original Xianguang realm, the underworld, came from across the realm, but not long after, the Xianguang realm was actively integrated by the Master of Tianji. Senior. At this time, Taishu seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly raised his head and asked impatiently, who killed the Lord of the Underworld? As soon as this question was raised, the Immortal Lord also reacted quickly. Before, the Lord of the Underworld was indeed seriously injured by them, but at least the Lord of the Underworld still retained some vitality. It was not something that any cat or dog could deal with. Able to kill the Lord of the Underworld. Then this person's strength is likely to be a person at the peak of the immortality realm, or a immortal king. On the bright side today, although there is no immortal king, everyone knows that with the fusion of multiple worlds by the senior Tianji building master, heaven has allowed the immortal king to exist. No one can guarantee whether there is a fairy king from the outside world sneaking over. If there is really an immortal king, things will be very difficult. How terrifying energy will an immortal king emit after receiving the inheritance from the underworld? At least it would be easy to destroy a few worlds. The previous news was given to you for free, but this news is not so easy to obtain. Li Yun took a sip of tea and said slowly. Not many people know about the news that the demon saint town of Tianmang Mountain killed the Lord of the Underworld. It will eventually be exposed in the future, but it will definitely not be now. So, this news there is still some value. If Taishu and others don't want to buy it, they can wait. However, Li Yun can't guarantee what the world will look like after a while. Hearing this sentence, Immortality Zhenjun and Taishu looked at each other. As expected, this time they should ask about the key point. The person who killed the Lord of the Underworld is the person who has obtained the inheritance of the Underworld. Thinking of this, Taishu didn't hesitate at all. He took off a storage ring, placed it in front of Li Yun, and said respectfully, "Please give me some quotes from seniors." This time, Taishu can be said to be rich and powerful. He has 6 more rings of the same kind on his finger, and it doesn't hurt at all to take one out. The person who suppressed and killed the Lord of the Underworld was the reincarnation of an immortal king. Currently, he has fallen into the hands of the Lord of Tianmang Mountain. This person has lived for hundreds of millions of years and even participated in the destruction of the underworld. Battle of the Immortal Kings. Li Yun put away the ring, took a look at the contents, and then said slowly. 2 immortal kings. One of them also participated in the battle to destroy the underworld in the past. Taishu was confused. That's right. Li Yun nodded and continued. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain was previously a subordinate of the underworld. Now that the underworld is gone, he will naturally be free. At this time, Li Yun glanced in the direction of Sumeru realm, chuckled, and said again, I guess all the underworld marks on his body should have been erased. At the beginning, the underworld rules the heavens and has countless subordinates under its command. Many of the creatures among them have been placed under restrictions for fear that they might suddenly rebel, and the Lord of Tianmang Mountain is obviously one of them. Now that he has killed the Lord of the Underworld and captured Lu Qingyu, it will not be difficult to remove the restrictions on him. What about the other immortal king? The Lord of Immortality asked. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain is already so famous. It is estimated that the other one must also be extraordinary. The other one is from another world. He was born after the destruction of the underworld. His family also participated in the battle of the destruction of the underworld. To this day, there are still many old monsters in his family. Li Yun said lightly. He didn't tell much about Lu Qingyu's details. If you want to know more details, you need to pay. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 556. It seems that things are more serious than we thought. Taishu said in a deep voice. The death of the Lord of the Underworld actually involved the Immortal King, and there were 2 of them, which made him feel quite troubled. A reincarnated Immortal King is not bad. After all, it is just a reincarnation. Not the real thing. Immortal King. But the Lord of Tianmang Mountain is different. He is an immortal king who has lived for countless years. Now, his strength is probably terrifying to the extreme. Moreover, the reincarnated immortal king has fallen in his hands. It is estimated that the inheritance of the underworld is also in his hands. In this way, it is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Is there any way, Senior, that can help us to kill the Lord of Tianmang Mountain? Taishu spoke. He is still very enthusiastic about the ancient path. Even if the Lord of Tianmang Mountain is not in the Tianyuan world, he still wants to rush forward. After all, he has experienced something in the Xianguang world once. He deeply knows the truth of the death of lips and the coldness of teeth. Don't deal with it now. Lord of Tianmang Mountain, when he unifies the Sumeru realm, it is very likely that the Tianyuan realm alone will not be able to resist it. There are many ways, but you may not be able to afford them. Li Yun said casually. Well. Taishu's expression froze, he gritted his teeth and said, no matter how high the cost, this junior will. He is going to do whatever it takes. But the words are not finished yet. The immortal lord next to him reacted quickly. He coughed slightly, shook his head slightly, and then raised his hands and said, I wonder, Senior, is there any way to help the 2 juniors break through their current realm? Taishu was interrupted by the immortal lord, with a somewhat displeased expression. If it had been before, with so many resources in his hands, he would definitely want to break through to the immortal king as soon as possible. But it is a pity that the Lord of Tianmang Mountain is not the Lord of the Underworld. The gap between these 2 people is like a cloud and mud. Even if they break through the Immortal King, what will happen? A newly breakthrough Immortal King doesn't even have weapons, so there is no way he can be the opponent of the Lord of Tianmang Mountain. Anyway, they have also participated in the battle in the Underworld. That kind of experience is not something they can compare to. This one is simple, Li Yun said with a smile. Hearing Li Yun's reply, the immortal lord breathed a long sigh of relief. He turned around, glanced at Taishu, and whispered, Junior knows that Senior is confused. But at this time, strength is the most important thing. Without strength, no matter how many plans you make, it will have no effect in front of an immortal king. Senior, please don't forget that we can plot against the Lord of the Underworld. In addition to the help of Senior Tianji Building Master, your strength, Senior, is also one of them. When Taishu heard this, his expression changed again and again. Why didn't he understand this truth? However, with the resources in his own hands, how could he learn about the news about Tianmang Mountain after becoming the immortal king? Without the master of Tianji, guidance, just based on the strength of his immortal king, he does not think that he is the opponent of the Lord of Tianmang Mountain. Seniors have to have some confidence in the Sumeru realm after all. We already know the news about the Lord of Tianmang Mountain. It is estimated that the Sumeru realm is about the same. They are more anxious than us. As long as we both join forces, it shouldn't be too difficult to fight against a Tianmen Mountain. The immortal lord said eloquently. Sumeru realm. Well. Taishu let out a long sigh. In his opinion, the Sumeru realm is similar to the Xianguang realm. Back then, a lord of the underworld swept the Xianguang realm. Now, if an immortal king wants to sweep the Sumi realm, it really shouldn't be too easy. The senior has overlooked one point. In the Xianguang realm, there was no senior poster, but now that the poster exists, the potential of the Sumeru realm is not what it used to be. The immortal lord said again. As soon as he said this, Taishu's eyes suddenly lit up. This sentence seemed to be reasonable. As long as the people in the Sumeru realm are not fools, they will definitely come to Tianji Tower. I dare to ask Senior, have anyone from the Sumeru realm been here during this time? Taishu asked. As he spoke, he took out an immortal level item and placed it in front of Li Yun. He just asked if anyone had been here, but he didn't ask who the person was, nor what information they wanted to find out. The value of an immortal realm item is almost enough. Sure enough. The next moment, Li Yun put away the item and said slowly, it is true that people from the Sumeru realm have been to Tianji Tower. Stable. Taishu and the true Lord of Immortality both looked happy at the same time. Anyone from the Sumeru realm who has been to the Tianji Tower will definitely know the terror of the senior owner of the Tianji Tower. With the background of the Sumeru realm, take out a few people at the peak of the Immortality realm. It is not difficult. In other words, as long as they are willing to pay the price, they will definitely be able to cultivate one or two immortal king level beings. Of course, one immortal king is not the opponent of the Lord of Tianmang Mountain, but 2, 3 where is the position? After removing a huge stone from his heart, Taishu regained his composure. He glanced at the storage ring on his hand, quickly took it off and placed it in front of Li Yun. I also asked the seniors to give advice on how the juniors can break through their current realm. Besides, Immortal Lord Immortal also followed suit. He put down 2 storage rings at the same time and said, please give me some advice, senior. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 557. So generous. Li Yun raised his eyebrows. The two of them took out the resources directly without bargaining. This was also a good thing for him. At least it would save some money. He put away the storage ring. After searching in the system, he looked at the Immortal Lord and said, you are not bad luck. There are resources to support you in the immortal world. Thank you, Senior. The Immortal Lord was overjoyed. As for you. Li Yun looked at Taishu. Taishu is different from the Immortal Lord. What he needs is to break through the immortal king. Worlds like Tianyuan world and Earth immortal world do not have such an opportunity at all. If he wants to break through, he must go to other worlds. And if you break through in other worlds, the risk will undoubtedly increase a lot. Senior, what are the difficulties? Taisha said nervously. There is no difficulty, it's just that you may have some twists and turns along the way. Li Yun took out 2 jade slips, placed them in their hands, and continued, if you want to break through the immortal king, you must go to the junction of the Sumeru realm and the Xianguang realm. It's not far from Tianmang Mountain, so be careful. It is not far from Tianmang Mountain. In a sense, it is already the base camp of Tianmang Mountain. If something goes wrong, the Lord of Tianmang Mountain may find out. At that time, a giant immortal king intervened. It's hard to say whether Taisha can break through. The juniors understand. Taisha nodded solemnly. As he spoke, he put away the jade slips, bowed his hands and said, "Junior, I'll take my leave first." After him, the immortal lord also left. After watching the two of them leave, Li Yun glanced at the secret points on the system panel and murmured, the immortal kings are gradually appearing. Maybe my strength should be restored again. Improved it? Long before. He had already been promoted to the immortal king. When he was promoted again, his goal was to become the quasi-immortal emperor. At this point, looking at the world, there were only a few who could rival him. Unless he was the ancient underworld. The Lord comes forward. Otherwise, he can conquer all realms. At the same time. Sumeru realm. Tianmang Mountain. Lu Qingyu was imprisoned in a prison. Now. Lu Qingyu's condition was very miserable. His body was cracked, his bones were visible from the wounds, and the ground was dyed red with bloody blood. These injuries almost threatened his life. If the cultivation level is still there, it may be nothing. But now, his cultivation was sealed. Facing the Lord of Tianmang Mountain, he had almost no power to resist. How could a reincarnated immortal king be the opponent of a peak immortal king? How are you thinking about it? Outside the prison. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain is a middle-aged man with a stern face. He is wearing a battle uniform and has purple hair flowing down. He is mysterious and has endless coldness. His eyes open and close. A cold light enveloped the entire world. He looked at Lu Qingyu without blinking. The reason why he did not kill Lu Qingyu after he got the inheritance from the underworld was because he had a love for talents. This is an immortal king. Although it happened in the previous life, the memory of this generation has been revived. Give him time, Lu Qingyu can completely restore his former strength. When Lu Qingyu returns to his peak, he will be an immortal king-level subordinate. It is still very coveted. I come from the Lu clan in the God realm. As a subordinate of the underworld in the past, you should have heard of the Lu clan's reputation. If you ask me to surrender to you, aren't you afraid of provoking the Lu clan's wrath? Lu Qingyu slowly raised his head, his eyes full of undisguised murderous intent. If his cultivation had not been sealed, he would rather choose to self-destruct now than stay here. It is really humiliating. For countless years, he is still the third become a prisoner once. Spirit world. It's really an ancient world. The face of the Lord of Tianmang Mountain showed a look of vicissitudes of life. He had never heard of the reputation of the Lu family. After all, the existence of the underworld swept the heavens back then. There were too many powers with the immortal king. They either surrendered to the underworld or competing with the underworld. The Lu family is just one of them. It is not conspicuous. But he still knows the prestige of the divine world, because there used to be quasi-immortal emperors in this world. In addition to the supreme immortal realm, this divine realm is the most powerful world. And the underworld almost broke through the divine world, but unfortunately at the last moment, it fell short. If you catch me, maybe the Lu clan in the God realm has gotten wind of it, and they will definitely come to rescue me. At that time, as a remnant of the underworld, you will not be able to escape the liquidation. Lu Qingyu said in a cold voice. Is it? The Lord of Tianmang Mountain didn't care. He sat up, looked at Lu Qingyu, and said with ridicule in his eyes, if I remember correctly, you Lu clan should have stood on the opposite side of the underworld. As a descendant of the Lu clan, why have you fallen to the point of seeking inheritance from the underworld? Lu Qingyu was speechless. This sentence touched his sore point. If the old monsters in the clan knew that they had secretly obtained the inheritance of the underworld, they might also be considered the inheritors of the underworld. By the time, I'm afraid that even with my status as immortal king, I can't save myself. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 558. If you join Tianmang Mountain, you and I can rule this huge world together. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain has divine light flowing all over his body, like a supreme divine king, looking out in all directions. At this moment, all living things seem to have been stepped on by him. You and I both have the inheritance of the underworld. And the Lord of Tianmang Mountain looked towards the direction of the earth immortal world and said, in the corner of this world, there is another person who also holds the inheritance of the underworld in his hand. If he takes it, all heavens and realms will be trampled under our feet. Before, he didn't know the existence of Emperor Hades. But after killing the Lord of the underworld and searching for his soul, he has fully accepted the memory of the Lord of the underworld. He even found the location of Emperor Hades. The reason why he didn't take action because, in his opinion, the reincarnated immortal king in front of him is more important. You think too much. Lu Qingyu sneered mercilessly. The Lord of the underworld has swept across the heavens, and was still defeated in the end. How can you, a mere immortal king, compete with that one back then? The Lord of Tianmang Mountain didn't care. He chuckled and said that was because he was unlucky and met an immortal emperor from the immortal realm. Now that immortal emperor has also disappeared. There is no immortal emperor in all realms. I can definitely let the underworld rule the heavens again. Disappearing does not mean dead. Lu Qingyu shook his head. Of course I understand this. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain looked like he was in control, and he said eloquently, but the Lord of the underworld back then was not weak either. He was also an immortal emperor. If he wanted to defeat such a person, the immortal emperor in the immortal realm, how can we not pay a huge price? So long time has passed. Many records have long been blurred. Countless people only know that after the battle between the immortal emperor and the Lord of the underworld in the past, the immortal emperor returned seriously injured, but the Lord of the underworld was missing. In the eyes of many people, the underworld, the Lord must have fallen. Because, since then, he has not appeared. And the immortal emperor also lost news because of that battle, and was believed by countless people. He also passed away sadly due to heavy injuries. The immortal emperor, although the characters are immortal and have jumped out of the long river of time, they will not fall easily, but it also depends on the situation, such as encountering a powerful enemy who is evenly matched. It is still possible to fall. We can use this world as a foundation to cultivate our own power. You should have discovered that this world is actually almost the same as the ancient god realm you are in. It is a bit stronger than the original Tianyun realm. It can completely accommodate characters at the level of immortal kings, and can even give birth to supreme beings at the level of quasi-immortal emperors. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain spoke eloquently, and said calmly and conceitedly, and I, soon, will be able to break through the current shackles and step into a brand new world. Lu Qingyu's eyes lit up and he said in disbelief, are you going to become a quasi-immortal emperor? Still a little off, but not far off. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain did not deny it and said straightforwardly. He is an ancient figure who has been silent for so many years. His strength can be described as unfathomable. Looking at the current world, he can be said to be invincible. This. Lu Qingyu's eyes flickered. To be honest, he was a little moved. After receiving the inheritance from the underworld, the Lu family will definitely not be able to go back. They are not allowed to practice the techniques of the underworld, but they do not rely on the underworld. In this life, he can only be the immortal king. Although the immortal king is not old and immortal, cultivators are all ambitious. Who doesn't want to get one step closer? The Lu clan can't give you something, but the underworld can. Why can't you seek refuge in the underworld? This was also the main reason why countless forces all came under the command of the underworld. Just when Lu Qingyu was about to agree, a green figure suddenly flashed across his mind. He felt a chill in his heart and said in a deep voice, "Don't forget that there is a terrifying person in this world." Oh? The Lord of Tianmang Mountain raised his eyebrows and said nonchalantly, "You mean Lord Tianji?" "You know?" Lu Qingyu was startled. "Of course I know." The Lord of Tianmang Mountain said lightly. He already knows all the horrors of the Lord of Tianji through the memories in the mind of the Lord of the Underworld. A mere piece of news can make the Lord of the Underworld enter a place of eternal destruction. This method is indeed it's very scary. Because he can't guarantee that his Tianmang Mountain is foolproof. If the Master of Tianji Tower also instructs several immortal kings to parachute to Tianmang Mountain, he feels that his fate will not be worse than that of the underworld. How strong is the Lord? But he got an interesting piece of news from the mind of the Lord of the Underworld, that is, the Lord Tianji didn't seem to have any ill intentions towards the underworld. Even he also sells news from the underworld. What does this mean? It means that the owner of Tianji can be won over. If you don't provoke him, he won't take the initiative to deal with the underworld, right? The only thing he had to be wary of right now was whether someone would go to the Tianji Tower to buy information. According to his spy's report, someone from the Sumi realm happened to have been to the Tianji Tower not long ago. That force is the Xiao family. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 559. Since you know the owner of Tianji, you should know how terrifying he is. A person who can point out endless opportunities to others, and has calculated all the past, present, and future. Maybe our current conversation is under the control of the Master of Tianji. Lu Qingyu said indifferently. In the entire world, so far, no one can escape the control of the Tianji building master. At least everything about him has been calculated. He regrets it now. Why didn't he spend more resources? Find a safe way in Tianji Tower. Otherwise, why would you end up like this? The owner of Tianji can be said to have a perfect plan, but what about the others? The Lord of Tianmang Mountain, with a smile on his face, glanced at Lu Qingyu and said lightly. Such as you. What do you mean? Lu Qingyu's face didn't look good. This was already a naked mockery. Is the other party laughing at himself? Even with the help of Tianji Tower, it would be difficult to achieve something? Don't get me wrong, what I mean is that most people can't deduce the secrets of heaven. They can't cover everything, and the owner of the secrets of heaven can't put everything on the table. As long as they don't know clearly enough, we still have countless opportunities. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain said with a chuckle. You mean? Lu Qingyu's complexion changed. He knew this very well. He already knew beforehand that someone would come to help the Lord of the Underworld, but because the information was not detailed enough, he did not expect that the Lord of Tianmang Mountain who came was so terrifying. Just because of this, the entire situation took a turn for the worse. If it were anyone else. Maybe now, he is completely dead. Now, I suddenly appear in this world, covering the entire Sumeru realm and even the true martial realm. The creatures in the Xianguang realm are all worried. They must be looking for ways to deal with me. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain was extremely confident. His eyes were like rainbows, piercing the void, as if he could see through the minds of countless people. He said, since you want to deal with me, then they will definitely find ways to improve their strength. And in a short period of time, if they improve their strength, looking at the world, perhaps only the master of Tianji can point them to a clear path. Do you mean to rob others of their opportunities? Lu Qingyu said in a deep voice. This method is actually a very simple one. As early as in Tianji Tower, when it first appeared, there were people who came with the idea of stealing other people's opportunities. Of course, there were many people succeed. And Li Yun almost doesn't care about this. After all, the news has been given to you by yourself. If you can't keep it, what do you care about my Tianji building? But later, more and more people became more vigilant, therefore, by spreading doubts, many people who were trying to gain nothing were either in vain or lost their lives. This kind of thing has gradually become less and less. Lu Qingyu did not expect that the Lord of Tianmang Mountain, he is actually paying attention to this. Obviously. With the strength of his immortal king, he has the confidence, and the probability of success is very high. It is estimated that no one can resist him. He. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain chuckled and said, my Tianmang Mountain has reappeared in the world, but it still lacks some background. Now those people have taken the initiative to send it up. How can I not refuse it? Logically speaking, with his presence in Tianmen Mountain, he is the most terrifying force in the world today. However, he cannot do everything personally, and always needs some subordinates. During these times, although some demon clans have taken refuge, there are 2 or 3 big fish and small fish. He wants to recruit some powerful people. He will need countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures. And those who can go to Tianji Tower to buy information have countless resources in their hands. If they are destroyed and the news about Tianji Tower is snatched away, wouldn't it be a direct wave of takeoff? What if there is someone inside who bought the opportunity to become the immortal king and uses this condition to recruit subordinates? There will probably be countless people in the immortality realm are flocking to them. After all, the news from Tianji Tower has passed the test of time. He said that if someone can become an immortal king, he will definitely become an immortal king. And if he does this, he can also invisibly cut off countless potential enemies. No matter how you look at it, it's a surefire deal. Aren't you afraid of angering the owner of Tianji? Lu Qingyu said in a deep voice. I haven't provoked Tianjilu, so why should I be afraid? The Lord of Tianmang Mountain said with a smile. At this moment, Lu Qingyu was silent. If you join Tianmang Mountain, I can give you the position of Deputy Mountain Master of Tianmang Mountain. Even if the old immortals of the Lu clan come in the future, I can help you block them. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain said softly, when I earn enough opportunities, I can go to Tianji Tower to look for closer opportunities. By then, I will be the #1 person under the immortal emperor. You, the Lu clan, shouldn't have a quasi-immortal emperor, right? No. Lu Qingyu shook his head. It is extremely difficult to become a quasi-immortal emperor. Even if the Lu family has been passed down for hundreds of millions of years, there has never been such a terrifying figure. If not, what else are you considering? The voice of the Lord of Tianmang Mountain sounded slowly. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 560. Lu Qingyu fell into silence. After a long time, he slowly raised his head, looking only at the Lord of Tianmang Mountain, and said in a deep voice, I can help you, but you need to break through and become a quasi-immortal emperor in the shortest possible time. Are you afraid that the Lu family will come to settle matters with you? The Lord of Tianmang Mountain smiled. He saw Lu Qingyu's concerns, because the other party was also an ambitious person. He wanted to take a step closer to the inheritance of the underworld, but he was worried about the revenge of the Lu family. He alone, in addition, it is hard to say whether he can withstand the pressure of the Lu clan. You know, the Lu clan is in the God realm. In such an ancient world, not only the Lu clan exists, but there are other, more powerful the ancient and terrifying clan. If these people get the news that Lu Qingyu has defected to the underworld, no one can guarantee whether the other party will kill them all. At that time, even the Lord of Tianmang Mountain, whose strength is unparalleled in the world, can resist several immortals. King. What I am afraid of is the world of gods and the world of immortality. Lu Qingyu said in a deep voice. The two immortal kings have joined forces to rebuild the glory of the underworld. This is not just a trivial fight between the previous lord of the underworld and the Hades emperor. The immortal kings already have what it takes, and in all realms, the possibility of setting off a huge wave. If you don't notice it for a moment, there is a possibility that the world will fall into darkness again. Don't worry, isn't there the owner of TNG behind us? As long as I have enough resources, I can break through and become a quasi-immortal emperor at any time. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain said with a smile. Fortunately, the Lord of TNG remained neutral. If the Lord of TNG showed a little dissatisfaction with the underworld, he would never dare to be so rampant. If you want to break through to the quasi-immortal emperor, how far are you short of the resources you have? Lu Qingyu raised his eyes and asked. For now, I'm empty-handed. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain said without caring. You. Lu Qingyu suddenly changed color, his face was extremely green, he felt that he had been tricked. Don't be angry, aren't there still many pigs in the Sumeru realm, Jinhui realm, and Xianguang realm? Kill them and we'll have everything. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain spoke and comforted softly. So when are you going to do it? Lu Qingyu forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart and continued in a deep voice. Several of my subordinates survived before. They may contact the Lu clan or go to Tianji Tower. It would be fine if they went to Tianji Tower, but if they contacted the Lu family, it is very possible that the Lu family is already on the way across the border. If they come here and you have not become a quasi-immortal emperor, you and I will both die. At this moment, Lu Qingyu's eyes showed a cold light. Before, he was a little lucky that his men survived, but now he can't wait to rush there himself and kill those men. Because they know too much. If it is leaked, it is hard to say whether he will survive. It's nothing more than a trivial matter. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain waved his hand, and a divine light flew out from his hand, landed in front of Lu Qingyu, and said, "This bottle of elixir, you first use it to heal your wounds. I will soon find enough resources to become a quasi-immortal emperor, and you must also restore your cultivation as soon as possible." Lu Qingyu looked at the elixir blankly, and then at the open cell. He said in a deep voice, "Aren't you afraid that I will recover my cultivation and then escape? You have nowhere to go now. Deep in your mind, you have left the inheritance of the underworld. Your whole life will be marked by the underworld. Unless you kill your own memory, but are you willing?" The Lord of Tianmang Mountain said with a smile. As soon as he said these words, Lu Qingyu fell silent. He was indeed reluctant to part with the inheritance of the underworld, but it could bring him one step closer. If he cut off his memory, wouldn't he get nothing? At that time, when the Lord of Tianmang Mountain released the news that he had an inheritance from the underworld, it would be completely over. He would get nothing and risk his own life. There is no more loss-making business in the world than this. I will come back as soon as I go. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain, as soon as he finished speaking, his figure quickly disappeared. At the same time, Sumeru realm. In the Xiao family, several elders were present, Each of them looked solemn and a little uneasy. It has been a few days since I came back. I wonder how the fifth elder is doing now. He should be about to break through. The fourth elder murmured. Don't be anxious. Breaking through the immortal king is such a big deal. How can it be achieved overnight? We have been waiting for countless years, and we don't miss this last bit of time. The great elder spoke to comfort him. I understand this truth, but over there at Tianmang Mountain. The fourth elder pursed his lips. Do not know why. He always had an uneasy feeling. Ever since Tianmang Mountain was born, it had been too quiet, as if nothing had happened. This is very unusual. This is not the style of the Lord of Tianmang Mountain at all. If he is not pretending to be dead, he must be brewing a big conspiracy. Now, without an immortal king sitting in charge, they really didn't have the slightest sense of security in their hearts. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain should not be targeting the Xiao family in the short term, don't worry. The great elder said softly. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 561. I hope so. The fourth elder pursed his lips. He glanced at the sky uneasily, and then glanced at the people around him. For some reason, a sense of panic gradually spread deep in his heart. More than once. It gave him I have the idea of escaping from here. But this is the ancestral land of the Xiao family. Looking at all the current world, there should be no safer place than this. Prerequisite. Except for Dawang City. When all the elders of the Xiao clan were waiting for the fifth elder. Outside the ancestral land of the Xiao family. A man with long flowing hair and peerless grace walked over step by step from a distance. He was walking in the void, looking around with an indifferent smile on his face. It is truly a treasure, it would be a pity if it were damaged. The man whispered. This place has been run by the Xiao family for countless years. There are countless formations, and spiritual energy from millions of miles around is converging here. Hundreds of millions of years have passed. It can be said that just picking up a stone here, all valuable. Who are you? At this time, in front of the mountain gate of the Xiao clan, two clansmen strode out and stood in front of the man. They said coldly. I. The man raised his eyes, his face was extremely calm, and he said slowly, I'm not a human being. The two disciples of the Xiao clan suddenly frowned, with a look of warmth and anger in their eyes. The entire Sumeru realm is dominated by the human race. The demon clan has been suppressed to the limit. People from the ordinary demon clan, that is, it's too late to hide. How could there be a demon clan running to the Xiao clan's mountain gate openly? Isn't this looking for death? If this person is not a demon clan, it is easy to explain. He comes to the Xiao clan to have fun of. You are so presumptuous, is this the place for you to run wild in the Xiao family? Leave quickly, otherwise don't blame us for being ruthless. Two members of the Xiao clan said in a deep voice. Your Xiao family has been around for a really long time. When I controlled Tianyan realm in the past, the Xiao family has always been against me. Now that I have broken the seal, you are still alive and well. It's a pity that my people have been buried in the long river of history, allowing you to live in an ignoble existence for so long. Now it's time for you to go to the underworld, and they go to apologize. The man whispered. But every word he said seemed to turn into thunder, crashing into the hearts of the two Xiao clan members. Take charge of Tianyan realm. Just 5 words, but the gold content behind them is enough to make the oppressive person breathless. You know, that is a world that has already been shattered. Now it is said in a plain way that this person is either a madman or an old monster. As an old monster, he has also been in charge of Tianyan realm. There was only one person in their memory. Or a demon. He is the Lord of Tianmang Mountain who was just born some time ago. Enemy. A member of the Xiao clan screamed miserably the moment he reacted. He wanted to send a message to alert the clansmen in his ancestral land. But as soon as he opened his mouth, he was shocked to find that he could not speak. Not a single word could come out. All over the body, except for a pair of eyes that can move, there is no place that can move. SHH. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain raised a finger, put it to his mouth, made a silent gesture, and whispered, "Don't alarm them, otherwise the feudal resistance will only spill blood on the ground. And the blood of the human race will only dirty the land of Tianyan realm." As soon as the words fell, the two tribesmen were shocked to find that their bodies began to melt silently, just like ice and snow meeting the scorching sun, and soon the bodies disappeared with their heads. Then, two living bodies, the person just disappeared. He killed the two ants casually. The Lord of Tianmang Mountain didn't take it to heart at all. He glanced at the endless sacred mountain in front of him and walked into it. And the Xiao family's formation, in front of him, it was like a joke, unable to stop him at all. After all, the current Xiao family is no longer the former Xiao family. After the Tianyan realm was shattered, the current Xiao family is re-established by future generations. Their formation may be able to block the existence of the immortal realm. But for the immortal king, it has no effect at all. A quarter of an hour later, Xiao Wushang, who was sitting in the main hall, picked up the teacup next to him and took a sip. I don't know when. The spiritual tea in the teacup has gone cold. It stands to reason that every once in a while, a tribesman would come over and serve new tea, but this time the interval was a bit long. Think of this. Xiao Wu felt a little unhappy. He raised his palm and tapped twice on the table. Although the sound was not loud, it echoed throughout the hall. However, the person serving tea had not been seen for a long time. How outrageous! Xiao Wushang's face was filled with warmth and anger. His consciousness spread out, trying to find the lazy clansman, but when his consciousness covered the entire hall, he still couldn't find any clansman. Eccentric. Xiao Wushang muttered, but still didn't take it to heart. Then his consciousness continued to spread, quickly covering the entire Xiao clan. Suddenly, his expression changed, and his whole body seemed to be hit by thunder, and he suddenly froze. At the same place. I don't know when it started. Except for him and a few elders, there was no other living person in the entire Xiao family.